Welcome back to our series, Get Found on Google, 4 strategies to get your church on the first page of Google search results. And we're going to jump right in with part 3, Google AdWords. And we're going to show you why that's a great option for you to get your church on the first page, and actually walk you through a demo. If you've never set up an AdWords account, we'll walk through that with you right now today. So first, let's do a quick review of what we've learned already. We learned that Google provides relevant results to people that use it, and that's a good thing for the people that use it, and also for you, because you're going to be able to use Google to help people find you when that search is relevant. So to do that, you're going to be using keywords, and we talked a lot about how keywords work for your site. And keywords play a big part in AdWords. Then we talked about SEO for your website and how you can optimize your website so that you can have it be found in the first page of results. So let's go take a look of what a typical search result may look like. Now in this case, I put in a search for Church Denver. We can see we have our local search at the very top left and also on the map on the top right. Then below that on the left, those are the organic search links. That's where you would find your website if you were able to optimize your on-page and off-page SEO or search engine optimization. And on the right, we find our AdWords right there. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So in this case, we can see that for this particular search term, Church Denver, there's quite a few churches that are taking advantage of this, and you can too. So why use AdWords? Well, there's quite a few reasons, but one of them is that it's targeted by keywords, meaning your ad is only going to be shown to the people that are searching for the particular keywords that you have chosen. The great thing about that is you know that the people that are seeing your ad are actually interested in the topic. Unlike, say, putting you an ad for your church in a newspaper, for example. You might get people that see your ad, but they are not necessarily looking. Now, that's not a bad thing necessarily. If you can get your message in front of people and present a relative and a compelling reason for them to follow up and follow through, then that's definitely a great option. But the great thing about Google AdWords is people are actively searching. But the fact that they sit down at their computer or mobile device and type in a keywords means that they are interested in that topic. And by showing interest, you want to definitely be there in front of the line of results that they find, because they may be interested in knowing more about you and your church or organization. And you could also target geographically, which is a great way to think about being relevant. Some people may have had the mistaken belief that by putting their ad in AdWords, you would have your ad showing to everybody in the world, which is definitely possible. You could do that. But for you, especially if you're a local church, most likely you're only going to be focusing on people in your local area. So the only people that would see your ad would be the people that put in the keyword, the search term that you've determined you want to show your ad, and also the exact geographic area. And we'll be showing you how to do that a little bit later. Another great reason why to do AdWords is that you can get instant results. If you saw our last session, we talked about SEO for your website. It may take a while to get your results showing up in the first page of Google's searches. It could take if you are active at this and we're adding backlinks and actively managing your keywords, your on-page and your off-page SEO, it could take a couple of months or maybe even longer depending on the type of competition that you have and the other churches that or organizations that are being found for that particular keyword. But with AdWords, you can start right away and get your ad appearing to people that are interested right away. And it's comparably inexpensive as a form of advertisement. If you've ever looked into advertising, say in your local newspaper, you may find out that they usually sell packages of ads, and it could be hundreds or thousands of dollars to get your ads to appear. So this is a great way for churches and organizations to kind of get their feet wet in marketing in general and internet marketing specifically, to get started right away and maybe even see some results right away. So how does AdWords work? It's essentially when you are putting your ad up on AdWords, you are participating in an auction. And if you see this image here, the man in the top hat with the auctioneer's gavel. In this case, it looks like they're auctioning off furniture. But if you picture that man in the top hat as being the Google software that is managing the auction, and the people that are standing around are the people buying the ads. In your case, if let's say our keyword was the word church, imagine instead of a dresser or a stool coming up for auction, the auctioneer is holding up a keyword. Who wants to bid on this keyword of the word church, or in the case we showed you, Church Denver, as an example. And these people at the auction can decide whether or not they're going to participate in that. Number one, by having that particular keyword in the list of keywords for their ad. And number two, by how much they will bid, their maximum bid for that particular keyword. And the interesting thing about that, if that's all there was, then the highest bidder would always get the ads. But Google actually takes this a step further. Imagine that auctioneer is looking at each of those bidders and judging their quality, maybe their ability to pay, for example. So this is essentially what Google is doing when it places ads. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in our demonstration, but Google is looking at your ad, the keywords that are in it, how well the keywords that are in your ad copy match your keyword list, and also how those keywords compare to the landing page that the ad is pointing to. So you can imagine, let's say we have our example of the keyword Church Denver. If you are pointing that particular ad result to your web page and that keyword Church Denver is nowhere to be found on that page, then you would have a lower quality score. Because as we talked about, Google is all about relevance. Google wants to give people the most relevant search possible, and that even applies to ads. So if Google can't find any keywords on your landing page that match the keywords in your list or the words in your ad copy, Google is going to penalize you and either let somebody else beat you in the ad bidding game, or place you down further on the list, or even charge you more for your ad being clicked on. So quality score is a very important thing because as we talked about, we want to be relevant, and Google wants the searchers to get relevant results. So how does it work? And this is just basically on setting up your AdWords account for the first time. You determine a budget, how much you're wanting to spend. You select your keywords, and we talked a little bit about that before. You want to be relevant on what your ministry is all about. You select your geographic area, you write an ad, and you enter billing information, and that's it. It's pretty straightforward method, and we're going to walk through that right now with our demo. So let's flip right on over to our Chrome browser, and we're right here at the front end of setting up an AdWords campaign. To get to this page, you would just go to your web browser and type in the address adwords.google.com. So if you've never used AdWords before, this is where you would walk through the list. So we're going to get started right now. So we're going to click down here on Start Creating AdWords Campaigns. And it's going to ask us some information here. We can name our campaign. We could call this, if you're going to be doing multiple campaigns, you could have a different campaign name for each of the campaigns that you have. For example, you may decide you want to have an AdWords campaign for an upcoming special event, like an Easter cantata. Or maybe you want to have a campaign that just runs all the time, that's a general information about your church, people that are looking for a church. So you can determine, you can have multiple campaigns and have them all running at the same time. So in this case, we could just say test. And if you want to start a campaign and call it test, that's a great idea. We can start with the standard keywords targeted text ads for all search networks and display networks. And one of the great things about setting this up is you can learn more about each of these different things by just clicking the links. Google does a great job of explaining to people how that works. Now we'll just come down here and we'll see the type of ad, search network with display select. And we can choose other things like the search network only and display network only. And let me just tell you how that works. The search network is what we showed you earlier on the Google results page. That's the column on the right that we had circled in red. Those are where your ads would appear if you said search network only. If you said display network only, then that would be your ad appearing on other people's websites. One of the places that Google places their ad is if let's say we have somebody that writes a blog or has a website about church ministry in this case. They may, in order to generate some revenue to help pay for their server and their time, put together an agreement with Google to run ads on that particular website. So they have designed in their layout specific places where ads will appear. And Google will place those ads in those places. That is called AdSense. And your ad will display in line on those pages. So in our case, we're going to just say search network only. And we can just say OK. So we're going to do the search network only. We're not going to worry about display network. Now this may be important to you because you don't really know exactly what type of pages your ads will appear on. If that's important to you, then you want to be careful about that. You can just say standard for the search network only. And for the networks, we've got here we have search partners, and that may be other third parties that are partnering with Google to show search results. That could be software that works with in conjunction with Google. For the case of what we're doing, we could click off of that if you want to and just concentrate on just the search network. Now you can even choose which devices that you would be showing your ad on. You can say all types of devices. We can change that. You can make selections. For example, you may decide that you only want to have your ad show up on desktop computers and not mobile phones. But using mobile phones is a great way for people nowadays to be finding what they're looking for. So don't necessarily discount other devices. And right here, we're going to choose our location. Now, the default right here is United States and Canada. And I'm going to say, let me choose. And I'm going to just enter 29602, my zip code. This is a zip code for Greenville. And you can see it's going to pick up some different areas. This is a little warning that Google's putting in here to let you know this could be a very limited reach if we just choose this particular zip code. We could choose a larger reach for all of Greenville, for example. We could choose the county. You can see the different numbers of people that could be reached. We could choose a metro area, Greenville, Spartanburg area. And you can see as we're choosing the wider geographic areas, we have more of a reach. But for your particular campaign, you may decide that you want to focus on a smaller area. So I'm going to just focus on, say, Greenville and generally. Now, I could focus on just a zip code if I wanted to. And that makes a lot of sense if you're trying to reach your local community. So that's completely up to you on how precisely you want to target your ads. And you want to choose your language. English is the default, and you can change that if you need to. And under bids, the basic options for bid strategy. You could leave this and just AdWords will set my bids to help me maximize clicks within my target budget. And we'll talk about this right here. I'm going to click on manual. So we would choose your maximum number of bids in the next step. And just talk a little bit about the type of bids and how this works. You have your cost per click, which is generally what people will start with an AdWords campaign. So when you see those ads appearing on the right, your ad can appear to hundreds of people doing searches. But until somebody actually clicks on your ad, you don't actually pay anything to Google. Now, this sounds like a really great idea, but then when you realize that the amount that Google will charge you on your bid is determined a lot by your quality, and your quality is determined by your click-through rate. And a click-through rate essentially means based on how many people see your ad, the percent of people that actually see the ad who actually click. Now, a lot of times click-through rates are less than 1%. So for first starting out, if you're getting click-through rates that are 0.2%. Don't be too upset about that. That's completely normal. But there are some people that will be writing very compelling headlines, and depending on the type of thing that you're advertising, if it's really targeted well with your keywords that you've selected, you may be getting much higher click-through rate. The higher the click-through rate, the lower price that you are paying. So in essence, what Google is doing is rewarding people that are doing what they want to happen. So imagine, if you will, Google is giving search results all day long, but they are only making money when somebody clicks on an ad. So it's an interesting situation in that Google is attracting searchers by giving them relevant search results, but they only make money if people click on an ad. So Google is trying to reward people that are writing compelling and relevant ad copy that causes people to click on that ad. Because every time somebody clicks on an ad instead of an organic link, Google's making money. So you are partnering with Google. You have a mutual interest in making people click on your ad. So, and having that high click-through rate is something that you want to work towards. All right, so you can manually set your maximum click cost per click. That's your CPC bids in the next step. We could put a default here, and you could put a budget. Let's say we want to spend $5 a day, and you can completely change this however you would like. If you want to put it $1 a day, you can. Now, depending on how precisely you are focusing your geographic area and your keywords that are showing up, you may not even reach your maximum or your budget for the day. Google may not have enough opportunities to show your ad because there's just not a lot of people searching for that keyword on your list. If that's the case, you could expand the list of keywords that you want to be bidding on. All right. So let's go to, we're going to have the manually set, and we'll do that in the next part. And add extensions. Now, when we get to this part, this is a really great idea. It helps make your ad more relevant by putting your location. You can put the address, and if you have any questions on these, you can just click these little question marks here. You could put site links, and those would be extending your ad with links underneath the ad to different locations. So that might be an interesting thing you can try. You could also put a phone number in your ad, which may be beneficial. Now, that's really a great idea in that, let's say you put a phone number, somebody may not even click your ad. They may just pick up their phone and call you directly, depending on what type of an organization you are or what the ad has to do with it. It may be, for example, you're having a group yard sale at your church, and somebody wants to call and see about specific things that may be at the yard sale. So you just never know, depending on the situation. Putting that phone number may be a good idea. If you do that, then you're not actually being charged for the ad if they don't actually click on it. So it might be worth your time to do that. So we are going to save and continue and go on to the next page. Now, we started with our campaigns, and a campaign can have ad groups within it. Now, an ad group is basically the copy of the particular ads. Each ad group has to have at least one ad in that, and we're going to go ahead and put an ad in here. Now, you could call these ad groups different things. If you want to do some experimentation, you can have multiple ad groups, but we can leave that as ad group 1, or you could put a more descriptive term in here, and I would encourage you to do that so that it's easy for you to find these ads later based on what the ads are about. So we see right here is an example of an ad preview, and we have these different parts here to put in, and I'm going to put in let's see, so we're talking about churches, so I'm just going to put in something, visit our church. And if one of your keywords is church, there you're going to have a higher quality score right there because you're using keywords in your description. We'd love to have you visit and free coffee and donuts. If you think that, it'd help if I spelled donuts correctly. So maybe you have a fellowship time at your church and you think that's important. And I'm going to put in, let's see. Now, you see where it says display URL and destination URL. For example, you may just put your general website in this display URL, but in order to get a higher quality score, I would encourage you to be thinking about having an ad that is targeted to a specific landing page. As we talked about in the quality score, Google looks at the destination of where the ad is going to, and in this case, the destination URL. So you want to make sure that wherever this ad is going, that there are keywords that are in conjunction with the keywords that are in your ad and in your keyword list. So landing pages are a great way to do that. And another thing that helps with is, let's say you make a specific landing page on your site for specific purposes, like, as we talked about, the Easter cantata. You could have descriptions about what's going to happen at the cantata, the type of music and the times and what have you. But you would also be able, by that method, to make sure that your keywords are matching up so you have a higher quality score. So in my case, I'm going to put ministry designer .wordpress.com. And I just put this together just a little while ago, just as to have a destination. So there's really nothing on that website. It's a free website from WordPress. Now, in order to make this display URL more readable, you might want to capitalize. So, for example, you could put ministry, and in my case, I have designer. I'm going to put a capital there. So when somebody is looking at that, that may make more sense to them. And you can see over here, it's giving you an idea of what that looks like. So as far as keywords, we talked about the keyword planner tool and how you can use that. We can actually just start putting our keywords right in here manually. If you wanted to do that, I would encourage you. In our first session, we went to the keyword planner tool, and that would be a great way for you to be able to gather a lot of great keywords. The more keywords that you have, the more likely your ad is going to be when it appears, because Google has a larger selection to choose from. But I want to caution you, the keyword planner tool, especially if you're trying to promote your church, may come up with keywords that are not appropriate at all. It may come up with keywords for different locations. Like I know from experience, if you do use the planner tool and you have church, it may have just pull up some keywords that have been used a lot, and they may be with churches, whether it's from another denomination or specific churches in your area that are not necessarily relevant. But now I say that to say you could use a keyword that is another church in your area. So if somebody was looking for that particular church and they type that into the keyword, into the search terms in Google, they are looking for that church, but you are showing your church. And I think that may be a viable option for you to think about. So in this case, we would say church, and let's say free donuts. I'm just being you may or may not want to do something like that. I don't know if anybody's doing a search typing a search for free donuts, but in this case, that would be something that really works well with our ad. It would increase our quality score if somebody were to do that, because we're talking about that in our ad and hopefully in our landing page. And you could put your location. So I can put Greenville Church, and you would want to do other combinations like church Greenville. You could put in other places in neighborhoods around the area, like Simpsonville Church, in my case, other surrounding towns and what have you. But we'll just use that as a starting point. Now we see here over on the right that Google is giving us some other categories that we can choose from. Now, the reason that it's chosen these categories is because my website that I have is a free website from WordPress, and WordPress is a free blogging platform. So Google is suggesting some other categories. Now, hopefully you wouldn't be getting anything like that. When I put this ministrydesign.wordpress.com there, what I'm doing is just having an example so that we can see a quality score. Hopefully you do not have a WordPress website that has WordPress in the name. We would hope that you have a domain that is all your own. An example would be here. I could spend the extra money. It wouldn't be very expensive, less than $20 a year to get a domain. ministrydesigner.com if it was available. And in that case, you wouldn't have these suggestions from Google. But Google's looking at our URL and wondering if, hey, do you want to add these other categories? Now, hopefully, in your case, it's showing some categories that are church related. All right, so we're coming down here to our ad group bids, and our default bid. You could put whatever you want. Now, with your planner tool, you should have seen some ways to some suggestions on what the bids would be, and you could put in those bids. The important thing to know is if there are a lot of traffic, and we talked about this a little bit before, for short keywords like church, you may have more competition than the longer keywords. It's all going to depend on your individual situation. So the planner tool would let you know what the bids were. Okay, so let's say for this case, we're going to do a cost per click of 0.5 or 50 cents. So we're going to save and continue. And this is where it's going to ask you to set up your account, and it's going to ask me for information on, let's see, is United States. It's probably down at the bottom. And all the way down here. There we go, United States. Continue. And it's going to ask me for some information in here, which I'll quickly fill in. And contact name, and that would be me. And a street address. So we'll put that in. And I'll fill out this information, and we'll get to the next part here. Okay, so we filled out our address information and all of that type of thing. So now we're into how you are wanting to pay. So you're going to be making this as automated as possible. And you can pay with a credit card or debit card. In a case like here, I'm going to put in my card information, and you would put in your information also. Now you could also link it to your bank account if you'd like. That's completely up to you how you want to do that, but a card works fairly well. It's fairly quick to set up. And I'll fill out this information, and we'll see you on the next slide. Okay, so once we fill out our billing information, we get to our terms and conditions, and you can read through this if you'd like, but you won't be able to get any farther unless you click yes. So for our demo, we will. So we're submitting that. Okay, so here we go. We've got our campaign set up and ready to go. And right now we don't have any traffic, but this is where you're going to be seeing your information on how your campaign is running when you go to adwords.google.com after you are returning for a visit. And here you're going to see a lot of important information like how many clicks that you had on your ad. Here's what your budget is. Impressions would be how many people have seen it. Your click-through rate is going to be that percentage, the number of people divided by the impression. So it's going to be usually fairly small. So very rarely will you see anything above 5%. But you never know. You may have a really good campaign going that's very compelling. Your average cost per click, and this will vary, but this is going to give you an average of what it is. So it's going to all be determined by how many other people are bidding at that particular time on that particular keyword. Your cost, the average position, and what this means is on that left side, ideally you want to be as far up in position as you can. You want to be number one if you can be. To do that, you just need to have a really good quality score and possibly need to outbid others, but not necessarily. Quality score, if you have great keywords that are matching your ad copy, which is matching your landing page, and you have pretty good page rank, that quality score may be very high, and you can actually be paying less to be in the number one spot than other people who have a lower quality score, and they're paying more and actually appearing farther down on the page. So that's a good thing to know and a good thing to shoot for. So this is our campaign one, and we're just going to go over here to our ad groups, and here's our ad group one. We'll click on that, and that's going to show us our keywords right here. And it's just Google is letting us know it's estimating our bids to be higher than we are putting them down, and you can experiment with this. Try out your lower cost per click if you want to, or maybe try it higher and see with a higher bid if you are still being able to position. Because even if you put in a higher bid, depending on how many other people are in that group bidding against you, you may not be getting the maximum that your maximum bid is. It may actually be coming down to something lower. So that's a good thing to know. So here's our keywords here, and we're going to go here to our ads, and we're going to look at our ads right here, and this is our ad, visit our church. And it's a really great idea to make a lot of different ads in your ad group. And the reason for that is you just never know what's going to catch the eye of somebody. So I could just click here and say plus ad, and let's say I want to just move this around. I'm going to put free coffee and donuts on the first line, and we would love to see you there. Now, interesting enough, it's difficult if you put in things like explanation. We'll see if it gets through on that, and we'll save the ad. Yeah, it did let me do it. Generally, sometimes it won't let you put exclamation points in there. So you can see now I have two different ads, visit our church, with different lines here. I would recommend that you try a lot of different things. And you may think that's really difficult, but once you start making a lot of different ads, you're not thinking so much about the exact wording of the different ads. And I think you will be surprised, because you're going to see that Google's going to give you, you're going to get different results for different ads. Even though to you they look pretty much the same, one ad may just be pulling a lot more than another ad. Now, on your setup on these ads, we have them set up to maximize our click-through rate. There are other ways to set these up. For example, as we talked about, you can do, instead of a cost per click, you could set these up as a cost per exposure, or CPM, meaning how many people you're paying for that ad to show to a certain number of people, and that's all. You don't care whether or not you're not paying based on whether or not somebody clicks on your ad. So starting out with cost per click may be an easier way for most people. And then maybe you can experiment with cost per exposure, or CPM, and you're paying by per 1,000 people to see your ad. And it's generally a very small amount, but it might be something for you to try later and see what you think. Now, another thing that you might be interested in doing, let's say you come back and you're looking at this and you're seeing that some of your ads are not doing well, and you want to disable them. When you have your setup optimized for click-through rate, Google is going to generally look, once it starts to see this ad is doing better than this ad, it's going to start showing the ad that's going to be pulling the best. If you want to experiment and you have several ads, you can maybe try to disable some of the ad. You can pause the ad, and you can also do this on the campaign level. You can pause that ad. For example, you can start them up again. So if you, let's say you have a dozen different ads, you can check to see how they're doing, and you may want to pause some that are doing better than others just to see what's going to go on with it, which of the other ads will Google choose, and how will those actually appear. Now you can also set it up in your settings so that all of your ads receive the equal amount of exposure, and that's a great way if you're trying to do some testing and you want to see which ad copy seems to work the best. And then once you get a week or two with your exposure, then you can take the ones that are winners and just focus only on them. Completely up to you if you want to do that and do some experimentation. But you would want to start out with all of your ads enabled, and that's going to give you some interesting results to come back and look at. And there we have it. So pretty much that's it in how to set up your Google Ads campaign. Once you do this, it's just set it and check in on every few days to see what's going to happen with it, and see what your results are. There are lots of places where you can go and really refine these ad campaigns. There are people that have spent their entire careers, that's what they do all day long, is try to tweak ads to get a little bit better result. For you on a smaller scale, that may not necessarily be something you want to do. You could definitely you could spend more time with Google AdWords, and there are a lot of great sites that have some great materials available if you really want to dig in deep. What I'm going to do is give you some resources that can show you some sites that if you want to learn more about Google AdWords campaigns, you can learn more. But for the first-time user, just trying this out for the first time, this is basically all you need to get going and to get started with your Google AdWords. You'll have your ad appearing immediately, and you'll be able to get some results, and hopefully people will be contacting you. And as we talked about, because AdWords is such a great way to get quick results, this may be something that you want to start right away. Have your ads running while you're working on your organic SEO for your main website. And over time, as your main website will go up higher and higher in the results, once that happens, you may decide you want to discontinue or pull back a little bit on your AdWords campaign. Completely up to you what you want to do with that. As we were discussing, the four major ways, main ways that you can get your message on Google results pages, you may decide you want to focus on all four. And that's certainly something that you can do. A friend of mine that I've mentioned before has a church that is a startup, and he's been able to get some things working together on that with his organic search, local search, and also, as we're going to be talking about, with YouTube videos. He's been able to get all three of those going, and so he's not spending any money, at least as far as I know, on ad campaigns for AdWords at this time. But that was something that they started with immediately when being a church startup. They were trying to get some exposure immediately, and AdWords is definitely a great way to do that. And I would encourage you to try that out. As always, let me know if there's any questions or comments, and I'll try to answer them as best I can.